Hi, Wesley. Just reading your discussion post. One of the things that stood out to me is the line that you put in there saying like religion experience is a pertinent aspect of positive mental health. And that's an underrated thing that I don't think a lot of people recognize in terms of the individual as a whole. A lot of times, especially with providers, and you see this a lot in the literature as well, where there is a separation. Like, there's someone's spiritual health, someone's mental health, someone's physical health, things of that nature. There is a lot more literature out there taking a more holistic viewpoint, but even that is under a holistic approach. It's not just the mainstream. So it is one of those things where, especially when we're looking at disasters and we're looking at the building of resiliency, you have to, like, there's no ifs ands buts about it, you really do have to take into account the holistic person. So the impacts that an individual's spirituality, an individual's physical health, an individual's social health, their emotional intelligence, all of those things play an impact on how they're going to respond to the disaster and how they're going to deal with um, certain things. And you'd given the example of, for example, an individual who's Muslim, and the body needed to be covered with a sheet temporarily and ritual washings and things of that nature. That those are not just cultural nuances that are optional, especially when a person is truly embodying everything that they say that they're believing in, and it is part of who they are. So it's not like, oh, this is an optional thing, and it does add a layer of difficulty, especially when your first mode, especially as a first responder, or even just dealing with some of the disaster, um, is getting that person to safety and letting the chips fall where they may, and then just moving on. But there is a sense of closure, almost a sense of resilience that can be built by respecting those nuances and understanding that maybe it's not going to be the exact same, but allowing for those spaces to occur. So I guess my question to you ultimately here is, what strategies have you seen that has been effective in allowing for that? I can tell you that in Iowa, a majority of our population is white. White European, it's like 96%, 95, 96% white in terms of the state. So you really don't run into a lot of um, divergent cultural responses. And because of that, our disaster responses neglect that completely. They don't really take that into account. They don't. It's almost as if they don't care in terms of that, because they're like, well, a majority of people that we're running into is not going to deal with this, so we don't have to. And as a result, a lot of the marginalized populations get left out. And that's one of the areas where we are starting to see the state really change how they have approached just dealing with some cultural nuances and respecting those cultural nuances and taking a more holistic approach. Um, and they've created subcommittees and things of that for that nature. But for you, what have you seen in your state, in your area, and dealing with some of those nuances?